Telegram.
Welcome back to the Temple Daily Telegram Sports Podcast. We are on location tonight in another room of the Temple Daily Telegram offices. I guess this is technically called the library. Basically, it's a bunch of old file cabinets and old chairs.
It's quiet like a library.
Yes. Yeah, we're hoping our listeners, the 19 of you, won't hear as much of our air conditioning tonight as we record this from a more insulated area.
Recording studios.
Yes. Anyway, here we are, week 5. This is Josh Weaver back with you, as always, with Greg Willie over there.
Hello.
Daniel Zepeda over here.
Hello, hello.
And Marcus Hood over here.
Howdy, y'all.
Yes.
State Fair of Texas is coming up, so
Thank you,
howdy,
Big Tex.
y'all.
Oh, man. As I mentioned, it is week 5. District 12 6A continues. Temple is off this week. Belton is playing Thursday, so a little bit of a different schedule. And a whole bunch of our area teams are opening their district slates this week. So let's get to looking at what's on tap. Belton at Shoemaker Thursday. Also in 12-6A, Killeen is at Harker Heights. And Killeen Ellison at Coppers Cove. Salado kicking off District 8-4A2 at Waco Connolly. District 10-3A Division 1. 3 matchups this week. Manor New Tech at Academy. Troy at Cameron Yo. And Lago Vista at Gerald. In 8-2A1, Week 1 matchups include Bruceville Eddy at Axtell and Moody at Italy. In District 13 2A1, Holland is opening up at Hearn, and Rosebud Lot is at Thorndale. And then some non-district games, Lampasas at Gatesville, Rogers at Crawford, Bartlett at Frost, Anderson Shiro at Granger, Buckholtz at Golson, Fort Worth Calvary at Central Texas Christian, Holy Trinity Catholic at Jonesboro. And also idle this week, along with Temple, is Rockdale. So,
Those guys deserve a week off. They've been taking care of business.
yes, a lot of our area teams have. A handful of them, anyway. Before we get to probably the marquee matchup in the area, which is Troy at Cameron Yo, let's revisit a little bit of what happened last week in District 12-6A and look forward to what could happen moving forward. I don't know if people were paying attention to last Thursday, but Hewitt Midway and Killeen Ellison got themselves into quite a battle, a double overtime game. So instead of the air conditioner, we might have like a
People trying to break in and get it on the
coming
podcast.
through the ceiling. Anyway.
We've got a live studio audience.
Yeah. Oh, man. Never know what you're going to get.
Bang it on the walls to be a
Yes.
part of this podcast.
But Midway, one of the favorites to win district, escaped with the 24-21 win in double overtime. And they escaped. They kicked a field goal in the double overtime, and then I think Ellison had first and goal from the 7 with their possession in that second overtime, and got down to the 2, had a 4th and goal from there, and decided to kick a short field goal, which missed.
Yeah, we were kind of discussing that earlier this week about if we were in that same situation, would we go for the win or try and go for a third overtime?
With an elusive quarterback that can roll out, run pass options.
I mean, Midway at that point had won 35 straight district games. It's now 36. But, if you're the Eagles, I don't know. If we have 4 guys here,
you're there.
We're leaning toward going for the touchdown. But, in that game, I mean, the way Ellison was playing, obviously they were playing well. So,
It looked to me like off the video replay, it looked like Ellison kind of mishandled the snap a little bit. The kicker looked like he had kind of a herky-jerky approach to the ball, so it wasn't like he can't kick. It's just, unfortunate.
It was a little snap.
I think though most coaches would say, like, if you're not the favored team and you're kind of trying to pull the big upset, you got one chance there to win the game or lose it. The longer that game goes on, the better chance the better team wins.
Yeah.
And but not to put myself in the coach's shoes because he knows his team. But to me, I think it was like when Texas played out at USC a couple years ago. That game went to overtime. Mm-hmm. Texas had a chance to go for 2 and win, and they decided to kick the point, and they ended up losing. So it's like what might have been,
which back then would have been an upset.
Oh yeah,
today, not so much. But
and a lot of this also kind of depends on where you are in the schedule. I mean, this is still a week 2 district game, and Ellison, both teams had a win going into it. I mean,
and it's a long district schedule too. I mean, you get 8 district games.
And that's the thing. I mean, you might think differently, week 7 or 8 of district than you do week 1, but in week 1, I'm going for it on 4th down, going for the win.
Yeah,
I mean,
either play to win or play not to lose.
Yeah,
and that was just kind of the start to, which turned out to be a pretty tightly contested group of games. Killeen beat Coppers Cove 37-34. Belton had to hang on to beat Harker Heights 21-14, and Temple had to come back to beat Shoemaker. So, and I think this is just, there's going to be more of this to come as we move on in this district. Temple has this week off to kind of regroup and reassess some things, while Belton's got to go play Shoemaker on a short week. So, Greg, I know you talked to Scott Stewart again this week, as always. I mean, how's he assessing the Wildcats a few games into the year?
Well, happy to be 2-0 in district. Pretty happy to be on a 3-game winning streak after losing the season opener to a good team on the road, but not real happy with the defensive performance last week against Shoemaker. Temple gave up about 270 yards rushing, and by Stewart's calculation, 53% of the yards were after contact. And the thing is, I mean, Shoemaker has improved a ton since last year, and you look at them. I mean, they got a lot of weapons, a lot of good skill position players. Some speed, some power, some combinations of the two. They're talented. I think they'll give some people problems in the district, and I think if you said Shoemaker's going to go about 4-4 in district, I could see that. Maybe 5-3 even, maybe 3-5, but they'll beat some people because they're a year older. They showed some signs toward the end of last year that they were getting better, and this year you're seeing it. They just probably don't know quite how to win a big game yet, and I think Temple, for all of the inconsistency so far, they still got a lot of kids who have been in a lot of big games and come through in most of them. So I think that kind of showed up. But like you said, Temple was down 21-10 in the third quarter, and Shoemaker had the ball inside the Temple 5, 4th and goal, chance to really put some good separation. Like, would have been an 11-point lead at that time, and Temple came up with a big stop, and that changed all the momentum. Temple scored, I think, 3 touchdowns in a row, ended up winning the game by 10. So that was sort of a gut check moment for Temple.
Yeah.
And tell you what, their kids physically held up in that game a lot better than Shoemaker, which had a lot of guys go down cramping as that game went on. And Shoemaker's coach, Toby Foreman, was really mad after the game that I think his team had been out-conditioned a little bit, and he kind of vowed that that's not going to happen again. But anyway, Vance Willis, his first game with no turnovers as the Temple quarterback, and he ran for almost 180 yards. And Samari Howard, the sophomore, had 4 touchdown runs. So those guys were looking good. But during the off week, Stewart and the defensive coaches are really focusing on, do they have the guys in the right positions? And they're looking hard at the lineup. Like, they're shifting some guys around. They're bringing in a couple of new guys, either off the bench or up from JV, to give them a real shot to earn playing time. Because I think a few guys have disappointed for them so far in their eyes. So they're like, we're not just going to keep the same lineup week to week if certain guys aren't producing. We're going to give other guys a shot, and they know they're going to have to get better for the Beltons, Midways, Killeens, because there's a lot of talent coming up on their schedule.
Yeah, and as many of kind of these close games we've seen early on in district, or some surprises here and there, the 3 teams that have yet to lose 2 weeks in are Temple, Midway, and Belton. The 3 teams who we kind of figured might be near the top.
Perennial playoff teams.
But still, a long way to go.
Sure.
And, you mentioned Shoemaker, giving teams some trouble. That could very well be the case Thursday night against Belton at Leo Buckley Stadium.
Should be a rocking atmosphere over there at Leo Buckley on a Thursday night.
On one side, at least. Usually the traveling team has a few more people in the stands. But
I think that's actually, and I was talking to Coach Stewart about this, we were saying Shoemaker might have played a little more fired up because you had some energy in the stadium at Temple.
Yeah.
Whereas you go to Buckley on a Thursday night, I mean, really any night, and you kind of have to bring your own energy to a place like
Belton is 8-1 over there since 2014, so it's not exactly a hostile place.
Bucking the trend.
But like you mentioned, Shoemaker's got a lot of skill players and all that stuff.
Yes.
So it's going to be another test for Belton, and the Tigers' defense bailed out the offense last week. Belton got off to a really quick start against Harker Heights, 21 points in the first 15 minutes or so.
Even though missing some bodies, right?
Missing, quite a few. Five players actually on offense, all skill players, starting running back, 3 starting receivers, so maybe 4, I guess. But a lot of guys who've produced early on in the season were playing. But still, they always say next man steps up, and there was some of that, but not a whole lot of it. So it was a big game for Belton's defense, and they're going to be tested again this week against Shoemaker. But that's pretty much all I have to say about that one, because there's really no use in kind of calling the shots right now, at least. But Belton can go 3-0 in district for the second straight season, which is always huge going into next week, which is Temple. Temple comes to town.
And it's been a little while since Belton has beaten Temple.
Yeah, although the last 3 games have been 8 points or less, I believe.
Right there.
Darn close.
Yeah. So, including last year, which was a 3 overtime.
They're probably talking about it kind of like, when Marcus's Cubs, hadn't won the World Series for like how many years? They always say, it's going to happen. It's going to happen.
This is the year.
I mean, if Belton's going to beat Temple, it's going to happen, we think, one of these years.
Yeah, the Cubs finally win it when I kind of stopped following them.
Yeah.
And it's not going to be like if Belton's going to really have to outplay Temple to beat him, because you've observed the last few meetings. Temple seems to rise to the occasion when they need to. Belton always plays a good, solid game for most of the game, but in the end, it's always Temple maybe that extra play.
Yeah.
So can Belton be the team that makes it this year?
Yeah. There's been a few occasions where Belton has had a chance to take a lead, and they've come up short. I think 3 years ago when the rivalry picked up again, they had a first and goal inside the 5-something toward the end of halftime. Maybe, I don't know. They didn't capitalize. There's just been a lot of things like that.
Kind of like how Temple's had real chances to beat Midway and haven't been able to slay that dragon.
Yeah, but I will say about Belton though that Ruben Jimenez, the quarterback, I mean, through all these kind of injuries and adjustments they've had to make, has really kind of shown that he's the leader of that offense as a junior. He's their leading rusher right now, and obviously,
they might not.
I think he's got 13.
Continue, huh?
No. Mike Davis, their starting running back, should be back this week, and that'll definitely help a lot. But I think he's got Jimenez has 13 total touchdowns, which I believe is the most among District 12 6A players or quarterbacks at least. But so he's off to a solid start in his first full year as a starter. But I think we should move on to 10-3A District 1. And then we'll jump around from there. But Troy at Cameron Yo stands out for sure on this week's schedule, and go for it. Who wants to?
Yeah, I mean,
actually, Daniel, you're wearing the colors of both teams.
Well,
there's maroon and khaki right now.
It's not planned, but look how things work out. I guess
be an assistant coach.
I'm over there
for
either team.
I mean, the raccoon in the ceiling. We'll head on over there after.
But just wear that Friday night, man. You're good.
The neutral.
But that's definitely the marquee matchup. Both of these teams coming into the year, no question that they both want the District 10-3A title. Both of them have a ton of senior leadership, senior experience. And that's one of the things that both coaches, Tommy Brashear over at Cameron Yo and Ronnie Porter over at Troy, really kind of hinted at when I talked to him earlier this week that, it's one thing for, a high-profile game like this to be competitive and to play out the way you think it is. But when you've got this level of talent and you've got this level of experience, mainly, just those little details really end up being huge. And, you're going to hear from every coach for every game pretty much talk about how, whoever executes the little details or takes care of the little things, is going to win the game. But on this stage, with all of this experience, that really is magnified. So I think that's going to play out pretty big in this game. The game's at Yo. Last year, this matchup was at Troy. Troy played them pretty closely. I think Yo had the advantage with a 10-0 second quarter over Troy. That really kind of was the separation. They were pretty evenly matched in that second half. But Troy is going to look to make a statement there in that week one, and that's as pretty big of a statement as you can make in that district, getting a road win there in Cameron to start off district. But at the same time, Cameron's going to come out ready to roll. Brashear, it's kind of something he's been harping on. He's just kind of nervous about that week 2 bye week that they had. They've only played the 3 games as compared to everyone else playing 4 games. He's, a little worrisome in the back of his mind. But at the same time, he feels like his team is, prepared. They're ready to go. They start district this week, and then, they have their final non-district game the week after this, and then district will pick up the rest of the way. So really, just from both guys, it just seems like whoever can execute, whoever can finish the small details, and whoever can, kind of keep their emotions in check. They both realize this is going to be an emotional game. And whatever defense can come through. Both of these are really strong defenses. And we'll see what happens. I might be on the sideline if I'm wearing this outfit again. First half on Troy, second half on Yo.
Toss it down to our sideline reporter,
So,
Daniel Zepeda.
Tommy Brashear is saying some words I can't repeat. But,
I think this game is, at the 3A level, what is depth, because a lot of guys play both ways, but I think, that's going to be pretty big coming up in this one, and who can kind of, conditioning-wise in that fourth quarter, separate themselves. I think that's going to be huge in this one. And then which team can ride these momentum shifts that are for sure going to happen as well.
Yeah. Another thing I think is, whoever maybe gets the upper hand, they're going to be trying to – they're not going to take their foot off the gas. They're going to try to win the game by as many points as possible. I know that sounds like duh, but I mean, because you can get to a situation later in the year where Rockdale, Troy, and Cameron all have one district loss, and then you start comparing points.
Right.
So somebody's going to be going for the maximum point win.
Right.
Yeah, that's a very realistic possibility. I mean, you don't want to just, if you do get a sizable lead, throw in your second string guys. So that's a good point. But all in all, I mean, it should be a heck of a matchup. I think turnovers, like with any game, are going to play out huge on this one. Both of these sides have great defenses. They're pretty evenly matched when it comes up to defensive yards allowed. So whoever can take care of the ball, both sides can score the ball. Braden Brashear, having a great year at quarterback. He's got plenty of options at receiver. Nico Vargas, James Dubose there in the backfield. And then over at Troy, it pretty much starts and ends with Zach Herbachik in that offensive line. So whatever defense can come up with turnovers and, whoever can cash in those turnovers for points, I think is going to have a real good shot. And again, like Greg said, it kind of sounds, duh. But, I mean, when you're playing these two caliber teams with all this experience, it's going to be big.
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, both teams know exactly what each offense is going to bring. I mean, Troy's, like you said, Herbachik's back there, and Cameron's got a few more guys that are back there. But Troy knows what they're going to bring at him. Cameron knows what Troy's going to bring. It's just going to be a matter of who can stop what the other one's going to bring. And
you think Cameron was probably checking out the tape of Troy's game against Robinson to see what Robinson did so well to pile on some points?
What Robinson did so well was use a lot of players.
Yeah.
And Troy did not have that option.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's your 4A versus 3A matchup, basically.
Yeah.
Bodies and
that's the thing. When I think I mentioned this last time when Tommy Allison over at Robinson began the year, he said that he was going to use more players so that they could, take out his wide receivers, star wide receivers. But the only position that did not change was quarterback.
Yeah.
But he used multiple running backs, multiple receivers, multiple linemen. And at the small level, you just don't have that option.
Sure.
Even if it's just one level down from Robinson. But
And one last thing, I mean, you mentioned the atmosphere or lack thereof over at Leo Buckley. Yo Field.
Yeah.
The atmosphere over there for a district game is something else, and this one is going to be no exception.
for sure.
I mean, that place is going to be packed on both sides for sure.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Definitely expect Troy to bring
what else are you going to
a
be doing in
crowd.
Cameron on a Friday night?
Yeah.
Or in Troy, for that
yeah.
matter.
Yeah. not that far away either. So
I mean, like Cameron has a Dairy Queen and like Bush's Chicken and stuff. I don't think Troy even has that. So there's really nothing to do in Troy on Friday night.
Right.
A little bit more in Cameron, but not much more.
Just ragging on the city of Troy.
We don't even have a Dairy Queen in Belton.
What do you mean we? I don't live there.
Yeah, but you have to pass through there on your way home. More
if he was.
But yeah, I mean, anyway, looking at this district, I mean, you kind of touched on the whole point thing, but I mean, I think I've got $5 in my wallet if anybody can predict the order of this district, including the ties.
That's why, the Maynard New Tech at Academy game is actually big in itself because, that's a game that both those teams kind of feel like they need to win,
right?
Moving, as they look at their schedule coming up,
And even Gerald and Lago Vista is the same way. I mean, Lago Vista's been playing some good football, and we're not even paying that much attention to them because they're not in our coverage area. But
any games between Gerald, Lago Vista, and Academy, you would think will be very big games.
But
above 500 right now too, right? Aren't they?
No,
1-3.
Okay, well.
I mean, that's the thing. That's the one team I think we can all pretty much know may not be in the mix. But I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if Lago Vista maybe might upset one of the top 3.
Yeah.
One thing you see is when you look at the standings, all those teams they score a lot of points.
Yeah.
Every team except Maynard New Tech is well over 100. So it's like you have to score some serious points to win, any of these games. It looks like.
And then you got Academy, who they scored 158 points. They've given up 160, so you've got just a 2-point differential there, and they're 1-3. So
Academy's going to play you close when they
their defense did finally show up last week, even though it's against Florence, but still held them 7 points.
They'll take it.
Better than 57.
Dogging on Florence continues.
Salato's got its hands full in week 1 of 8-4-A-2.
Yeah, I was about to say it could be
Waco
the same.
Connolly.
That's the same type of district where it could be. But
I mean, that district's pretty stacked as well.
Connolly has a lot of talent.
Yeah.
They've got a big running back named Sunday is his last name, and he's a load. He's a big sucker, and he has size. He can run. I think Salado managed to beat them at home last year, even though the running back definitely got his, and Salado just won a very close game. But I think Connolly has a lot of their best players back off that team, and they're 4-0. So that's a big matchup.
3 of those 4 wins have been pretty convincing. I think they beat China Spring by 1, which was the closest. So,
but Salado, they bounced back after that week 1 loss to Troy. They've won 3 straight, and
they had a little trouble against Taylor, at least on paper. It looked like that was a lot closer than I thought it would be. 24-21, a late field goal by Rook Brown.
I was kind of curious how that one went.
Yeah,
those Ducks were a little stubborn.
Yeah, I mean, and you wouldn't think they would have been looking at their previous games and what they had done, which wasn't a whole lot going into it.
That's why you play the game,
right? Bruce Villetti, we were talking about the Eagles a little bit before recording this. That was a pretty impressive win over Granger last week, and they're off to a 3-1 start, opening district at Axtell.
They've got a lot more talent than I think people realize. I mean, between their running back Nathan Quattlebaum, he's going to pick up some yards. I mean, is he still our area's top rusher?
Yeah, he's number 1.
Clay Cooper behind him. But.
Yeah, they're going to give him the ball. He's 95 carries, 722 yards, 7 touchdowns. But last week, in their win against Granger had a little bit of trouble stopping TJ Jarman. And he's got some talent up back there. And that Jarman's really the kind of guy he is the guy that kind of ended up winning the game for him because he scored the 2-point conversion when Bruce Village just needed 1. But we talked about this internally about the problems they had that night with the kicking game. Both teams kind of faced it, and they were facing the win. And if you look at the stats, both teams punted the ball. When they punted the ball into the win, the 2 teams netted 0 yards total. 1 punt went for -5 yards, 1 punt went for 5 yards.
Is that good? No,
not really. But it was Granger who had the -5 yard punts, but they still had 3 punts and averaged 25 yards on them. So their other punts were like 40-yarders, basically.
I was going to say last week Harker Heights, Shoemaker, they had 2 punts and they were both for 14 yards. into the win at Temple.
The win was a ridiculous
fierce.
win, yeah.
Coming
And
out
so
of the East.
I could not really understand why in overtime they decided to put out that end of the field when you knew you're going to be kicking, unless whoever had that choice thought, well, we might have the better kicker who can do it.
Maybe they were big Bob Seger fans.
But anyway.
I had that joke earlier, man. I
Yes, you
started
did.
singing the song. Come on.
It's not really a joke, it's just a song.
Well,
but
whatever.
anyway. But yeah, Bruce Valetti, I mean, I think they're going to make a good run the rest of the way. They're looking good.
It's a joke that two of us brought it up.
That's, yeah.
We should be relegated to Kathmandu for that one.
Marcus is so mad we keep interrupting him.
I'm not mad. I'm just, it's like, I know this is coming
Can we just
every
turn
week.
the page to the next game? Oh, man. Oh boy.
I'm out.
Good job, Bruce Vallette.
Yeah, that was Kyle Shopping going, they're trying to talk about my team. Make them shut up.
Yeah. And then the other area teams opening district, Moody at Italy in that same at 8-2A1, and then Holland at Hearn and Rosebud Lott at Thorndale in 13-2A1. Holland just needs to keep doing what it's been doing. They were preseason favorites to win the district, to repeat as district champions. Hearn, I think, you kind of don't, night in, night out, don't know what to expect from Hearn. They've kind of alternated wins and losses, I believe.
Yeah.
They're
Really lopsided losses and then, wins in a rout. So-
Hammered Lexington last week, but kind of everybody's
Yeah,
doing that this year.
Lexington.
Right.
I kind of think at the beginning of the year, Brad Talbert said Hearn was one of those teams that was kind of, he worried about. He thought they were
Yeah.
going to be a lot better. But I don't know if they've proved it this year.
And
And
it's at Hearn, too, so,
I've heard
Yeah.
more than one people say that Hearn's kind of a weird place to play for some reason.
well, it's kind of a weird place to drive through, too.
Yeah.
But
A lot of roads
keep
crisscross
going,
in Hearn,
Yeah.
and it's like
Yeah.
a crossroads.
yeah, you have a train track that just kind of goes.
put on your blinker
A
to
little bit
get
of
over in
little
front
bit
of
of a
the train.
speed trap too. You got to slow it down going through.
Oh,
Hearn,
yeah.
too.
For
Yeah.
sure.
Well, I talked to Brad Talbert about that today, and he said,
Bragging.
I'm telling you, I got to get mine in. But no, he said that Hearn, like y'all said, it's a tough place to play. I asked him honestly with his team riding the way they have been, if it matters if they even start on the road or at home. And he said at Hearn it does matter. They're going to be big and physical, so they're prepared for that. But he said their non-district slate, 2 years ago when he kind of had to make that, that's why he wanted Martin. That's why he wanted Crawford. Just to kind of get ready for what's coming up next for them. So he, message is still the same for the Holland boys. Just keep focusing on what they do. Don't drink the Kool-Aid, as he likes to say all the time. Just stay focused and take it week by week.
You think pound for pound, Holland best team in the area so far? Just considering their wins. I mean, I know Rogers is off to a
Got the
really good
most
start,
attention.
but
I was going to say Rogers is there, too, just because of how many points it's been scoring.
Rockdale,
Rockdale.
Camarillo undefeated.
Yeah, I mean, like I said at the beginning, we've had a handful of area teams that have just kind of come out swinging this season.
And Rogers, let's see who they play. Crawford this week, correct?
Yeah.
So they kind of might benefit of Crawford having to go to Holland last week. See how that plays out. But yeah, Rogers, they got a ton of weapons over there. That defense is stout, and they're off to a good start.
Thorndale was the other team in 13-2A1 that could probably contend for the district title.
Yeah.
So Rosebud Lott's got its hands full for sure in that one. Anything else jump out at you guys before we hand it over to Daniel to wrap us up with some numbers?
It was nice to see Moody get their first win of the season last
True.
week.
Mhm.
And a big win at that.
Yeah.
Nice 48-7 victory.
We mentioned just these teams sort of in random fashion earlier, but that district opener, Lago Vista at Gerald,
Right.
that's a big tone setter for either one of those teams.
Right.
Because the way we're looking at it, we kind of think Rockdale, Camarillo, and Troy will be three of the playoff teams, and that leaves one spot. And we think there's probably three legit contenders. So, but those, anytime Lago Vista, Gerald, and Academy play each other in any combination, those will be pretty big games to see who can sneak into the playoffs, it looks like.
Right.
Definitely.
And I know a lot of us have kind of talked about Academy more than likely if they can kind of turn things around, probably taking that fourth and final spot out of that district. But after seeing Gerald last week, I'm really kind of leaning a little more towards Gerald. Granted, they did play Rosebud Lot, who they're having a tough time this year. But when you put up 70, that says something. They've got a bunch of offensive weapons. Their quarterback, Aaron Rodriguez, he's really kind of come into his own. He had a good year last year. He's still riding out this year. Got some good receivers. They've got a strong pair of running backs. Each ran for 3 touchdowns last week. So, again, it's easy to do against a struggling team, but I think Gerald will definitely make a strong push there if they can, stay on track.
I'll tell you one thing that putting up 70 points does tell you. It tells you your kicker's probably going to need an ice bath after the game.
Yeah, he was. I got tired of typing his name into the box after a while.
He's pretty busy. Extra points, kickoffs. I'm sorry. Were you going to say something serious for the first time tonight, Greg?
I'm going to mention that this could be Gerald's last go-round in 3A this district season coming up. They seem like they're kind of primed to jump up into 4A just with the population shifts and growing area north of the Austin area. So, and who's to say? I mean, Cameron and Rockdale and Academy are also
going to say we might be seeing that about a
kind
few areas.
of pushing the boundaries there a little bit. So.
Yeah, one of the popular things, I mean, we're getting way ahead of ourselves, but one of the popular projections right now is that actually Gerald, Salado, and Academy are all in the same district next year, and they're all playing at that in whatever level Salado's in right now.
4A2.
There you go. Why'd I have to look this up every week? But and there was one other team that they had mentioned in there that was going to be a jump up, but I can't remember who it was now. But yeah, that'd be interesting.
Yeah. Of course, Rockdale and Cameron used to be in the old 3A together, which would be 4A now, and then they lost some population with the Alcoa thing. But they're still not far below the cutoff.
No,
there's probably not a whole lot of movement in.
Well, where's the new Lake Belton going to fit into in their first varsity?
Well, see, their numbers won't even count. Because
I'm just saying down the road in a couple years, they might be a 4A. Depending on what they decide as far as boundaries
and also does Belton ISD want them to be the same classification,
rivals, which I doubt,
as soon as possible, or do they want them to be different? So you never know.
Yeah. So I would like a district that features that proximity and
it'd be great.
And Temple could always drop back down into 5A. They're pretty close, and they're not sure what's going to happen on their count in October.
We'll talk about that in 2024. Or something.
Wait, well.
What year is it?
Are we still going to be here then?
I don't know.
So tune in 5 years for that podcast, folks.
We might be locked in this room right now. Yep, we are. Daniel.
That guy that's in the ceiling, get us out.
Stats.
All right.
Save us.
I'm running out of room on my phone.
Here we go. All right. Fast and Furious, here we go. Your area rushing leaders through 4 weeks now, I believe. Nathan Quattlebaum out of Bruceville Eddy, 722 yards, 7 touchdowns on the year. Clay Cooper out of Holland, 695 yards, 8 touchdowns. Zach Herbachik from Troy, we've mentioned his name a couple times, 601 yards, 9 touchdowns. Charlie Hudson for Central Texas Christian, 508 yards, 8 touchdowns. Cameron Valdez out of Rockdale, 469 yards, 7 touchdowns. And wrapping up is Carlos Reyna out of Granger, 453 yards, 8 touchdowns for the Lions, who are off to a solid start, which we've mentioned before.
3-1.
3-1. Greg, any serious comments, as I will reiterate what Marcus said earlier?
I just got 3-1's not as good as 4-0, but it's better than 2-2.
That is math.
I'm just buying you some time to get your next sheet.
There we go.
Yeah, okay.
Sheet.
All right. Your area passing leaders. All right. Jace Robinson out of Rockdale. He's really kind of run away with things. 1,223 yards, 17 touchdowns. That is 17 touchdowns. Vance Willis over at Temple. 759 yards, 8 touchdowns. Braden Brashear over at Cameron Yo, 744 yards, 9 touchdowns. Aaron Rodriguez out of Gerald, 630 yards, 7 touchdowns. Ruben Jimenez from Belton, 616 yards, 8 touchdowns. And Jerry Cephas from Academy, he rounds things out with 592 yards and 6 touchdowns.
How many touchdowns does Jace Robinson have?
I believe that was, you carry the 5, remove the 6. I think that was 17. So that's 17 through, 4 games? I mean, that is
That must be that new math.
something like
Common
that.
core.
About 4 a game.
All right.
That's what you were looking for.
That is. That's the math. All right, and your receiving leaders through 4 games. Keyshawn Raven out of Rockdale. He's gotten a lot of those passes from Jace Robinson. 488 yards, 7 touchdowns. Quentin Johnston, the man from Temple, 386 yards, 5 touchdowns. Braden Lilly out of Academy. He's up next, 375 yards, 2 touchdowns.
He's got the most receptions in the area.
He does
with
by
30.
by a wide margin, more than 11 more than anyone else. So yeah, he's got 30.
Possession receiver.
Mm-hmm. Joseph Crathers out of Gerald, 344 yards, 4 touchdowns. Kobe Young, the guy out of Cameron Yo, 338 yards, 4 touchdowns. And Caleb, can I get a pronunciation on that last name? Curley?
Curly.
I finally get it right. Caleb Curley out of Holland, 304 yards, 3 touchdowns on the year for the Hornets.
Well done, everybody. See you next week.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.